let's talk about YouTube, specifically 10 tips that I think churches need to know when it comes to YouTube. So we're going to just dive right in. Here we go. Number one, it's not an archive. It's a search engine. Oh, now this, we're starting big. We're going like big picture, broad strokes. How do we think about the internet? Sometimes we use YouTube as an archive. We'll just put all of our sermons there, all of our worship services there. It becomes just the place where stuff lives. But it's not an archive. It's a search engine. In fact, YouTube is the second most used search engine on the internet. Number one is Google, probably guessed that one. Number two is YouTube, both of which are owned by the same parent company called Alphabet. But this is where people go to search for stuff. They have questions and they're going to type it in, and YouTube is where they're going to get answers. My friend Dave Adamson says that people will go to YouTube to ask questions like, how do I fix my car? And how do I fix my marriage? Now, you might have a sermon that can answer one of those questions, maybe both, who knows? But the point is, this is not just a static archive. This is an active search engine where people are showing up to look for stuff, to find stuff, to get answers to their questions. Number two, from 8 to 80. Now, I'm convinced that YouTube is the most accessible social platform on the internet. By that, I mean, it's accessible by all ages. You think of, all the other ones, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, Facebook, whatever might be the next one that we're supposed to be into now. They generally kind of label themselves or categorize by different demographics. All the old people are on Facebook now. Hello, I'm one of those old people, I guess. But YouTube seems like it has such a wide access point where you're going to have kids and you're going to have older adults, and they're all engaging. Now, engaging differently. They're not all having their favorite YouTubers like, a 12-year-old aspires to be someday, but they all engage content from the platform and have generally a positive association with that content. Where people might have like a feeling about some platforms, YouTube is one that is generally well accepted, which is, I think, a good reason for churches to be engaging in it, because it means we can engage this space as well, engaging all ages in this space. And that's just a good thing to know going into the platform. It's where people are, they're showing up to search there, and all ages are searching there. Number three, organic discovery and intentional embedding. Now, by this, I mean, when you put your content in a place where most of the people in the world are searching for their answers to questions or looking stuff up, you have the chance to be discovered organically, for that to be just picked up on by the people who are searching. Now, you can also the benefit, it's not just a search engine, but you can take your content and intentionally embed it on your site. A lot of people like to use Vimeo because you can customize the look, which is great if you're into that, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But I think you miss out on that organic discovery that can happen with your content on YouTube. And the intentional embedding is where you can still have that content put into your church's website. At Riverside, where I'm one of the pastors, this is what we do. We have our YouTube content embedded in all sorts of places on our website, allowing our YouTube content to show up on our website for people to engage intentionally and then organically discovered through the platform of YouTube. Okay, number four, first impressions. Okay, we're getting tactical. When you're creating content on YouTube, first impressions matter. And your first impressions on YouTube are title and thumbnail. Those two components are what people are going to either see you and click in to engage or swipe away. And by that, I mean, what are you calling the video? So a sermon video, don't call it sermon video June 28th. No, because no one's going to search for that. That tells you what it is when it happened. Put that in the description. The title should be something that actually relates to what people might be compelled by. This is the first impression. So when they see it, their search results, is the title potentially going to be something that could show up in search results? That's called search engine optimization, SEO. Maybe you've heard of that. So you want to craft a title that is actually intentional to what people might be searching for. That could be as simple as the title of the sermon. Give it the name in the first words. What was it called? Or maybe it's a compelling question that this sermon's answering. There's lots of ways to think about this, but just be intentional about the title. And similarly, the thumbnail. Now, YouTube will automatically pick thumbnails from your video for you, which is great. And you can also auto select what you want it to be. You can even do some ABC testing. You can have up to 3 options you try out. But the point is, don't just let it be a random frame. Try to make something intentional. Even go as far as use something like Canva, free editing app for images, where you can use some templates built in to make something that's intentionally designed with images and simple, minimal, very easy to read text. Has to be simple because people are reading it on this device. They're reading it tiny, the size of a stamp, but still having something where what they see draws them in? Because this is what we're going to get to in a minute with some of the key stats. But the first impression is, what's it called and what are people seeing? You can't let that just go accidental. That has to be incredibly intentional. All right, number 5, 2 important stats. Okay, I mentioned these were coming. Here they are. CTR and AVD. What are those? What does that even mean? I got you covered. Okay, CTR is click-through rate and AVD is average view duration. So these are 2 important stats, and YouTube gives you really rich and robust stats you can look at. And click-through rate is the percentage of people who see your video on YouTube and actually click it. So it's going to show up in their search results, in their discovery, in their homepage maybe, and if they see it and click it. And that's an important stat to pay attention to. Now, a good number that I've seen kind of in lots of YouTube industry is you want to be a 5%. That's a good, if 5% of the people who see your video click on it, you're doing pretty good. Now, higher is obviously better. If it's lower than that, it might mean your title and your thumbnail need a little bit more intentionality. It means that people aren't, your video might show up, but they aren't clicking into it because something about the title or thumbnail isn't compelling them to want to watch the thing. Now, AVD, average view duration, is how long does a person stick with your video? Are they watching 10 seconds and leaving, 30 seconds, half the video, the whole video? Obviously, the goal is that people watch the whole thing, but this can be a good stat to see when do people typically drop off and leave your video. It can tell you what's going on there that we need to change. Okay, let's go on to number 6. Consistency. Oh, this one's just simple and important. You can't do YouTube whenever you feel like it. You've got to be consistent. What is the rhythm that you're doing YouTube? How are you doing it consistently? Think about our Sunday morning worship services. They happen every 7 days. People know it's going to be there all the time. What is the consistency with your YouTube life? Might be, your Sunday morning live stream. That happens every 7 days. Great. That's a good consistent thing. But maybe you also do things like the sermon video and other things. What are you doing and how are you doing it consistently? Just a good thing to think about. You can't just do this like intermittently or when it comes to you. It has to be consistent. Okay, let's go on to number 7. Longs, shorts, and everything in between. Now, this is just good to know because there is a lot of different types of content you can put on YouTube. I call it longs, shorts, and everything in between just to be kind of fun. That's not the official word. Shorts is the word. Shorts is YouTube's version of TikTok or Instagram Reels. It's the vertical short form stuff. On YouTube, it has to be 60 seconds or less. Just a good note for you there. But you can have great organic discovery through a thing like YouTube Shorts. But then longs, you can also have long content. You can have your whole worship service, hour plus long content, and everything in between. What are you doing for that, 40-minute, 20-minute, 7-minute range? There's lots of ways to think about engaging content, and it allows for such a diversity of content types and lengths, which I think is just a good reason to use it. And the question would be, how are you utilizing all of those kinds of ways of engaging? Because the psychology is different. People are going to have a different mentality to sit down for an hour, 20-minute thing, a worship service. That's more like watching a movie. But the 17-minute sermon, okay. What about the 45-second soundbite of the sermon? Okay, these are all different ways of engaging that you can utilize on the platform. Just good food for thought. All right, let's go on to number 8 here. Playlists and podcasts. So this would be how you can organize your content. Now, playlists you're probably familiar with. You think, oh yeah, YouTube playlist. You can make a playlist and put your videos in it. You can actually put other people's videos in the playlist too if you wanted to kind of curate broadly. But let's talk about your channel. So you could have a playlist for your Sunday morning worship services. You could have a playlist for the sermon videos. You could have a playlist for your sermon talkbacks. You could have a playlist for your Bible on the street, where you take the Bible and talk to people on the street. All sorts of things you could do with it. But the point is, playlists let you organize your content so that people can more easily find it, so it can be embedded or discovered. But then podcasts, this is what you can do to a playlist. You can set a playlist to be a podcast. Now, this doesn't put it in like, the Apple Podcast world. This just puts it in YouTube Music. But the benefit I find for things like your sermon videos or anything that has that kind of like people might want to listen to it or engage it in that space, it gives you a greater access to stats. You can look at your podcasts, which are just playlists that are categorized differently, and you can track the stats more easily of a specific playlist. Okay, quick note here, editing the video in my kitchen. They've made some changes to this. You can get really rich, robust stats on playlists. You don't have to make it a podcast just for the stats. It used to be that way, but now every playlist has stats, which kind of makes sense. There are still benefits to the podcast if it is a collection of content that someone might want to engage in a podcast-like experience, specifically through YouTube Music, and just
I don't know. It still seems like a good idea. So yeah, wanted to clarify that for you. Okay, back to the video.
So I think this is a great feature. We use this at Riverside for our sermon videos, for a video series we do called The Word Made Fresh, which is a pre-sermon, like what's coming up in the sermon, where I talk with the preacher about what they're planning. Our Bible in a Minute project, which is its ongoing daily short form project, that's a podcast playlist, which lets us have the content organized as a playlist, but then track through the stats. So lots of good things you can do with playlists and podcasts, ways to organize your content. Okay, moving on to number 9. It takes 100 videos to get started. Now, this is important because I talked about consistency, talked about, not just doing, you can't just do it once. You can't even just do it twice. You can't even just do it a dozen times. A lot of the most successful YouTubers say, before you even have the question of what am I trying to do here, you got to do it a whole lot. That means you're going to learn a lot. Your first 100 videos are really just getting you to the starting line. That's where you will learn more about how do you want to show up on the platform? What kind of content do you want to make? What's most engaged? What have you learned along the way? And one simple trick is, as you're making 100 videos, try to just improve one thing every time. And then, keep that improvement consistent. So over the course of 100 videos, you've improved 100 things and you've made things incredibly better in the process, the title, the thumbnail, whatever it might be. Don't get so caught up on video number 2. Keep going to video number 92. The only way to get from A to Z is A to B. You've got to go one after the other. So the point of this is you got to just start and keep going. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. So pace yourself. And YouTube, like we've talked about, has incredible potential to reach so many people beyond just the confines of your congregation. You can reach individuals who are curious or interested in what you might be talking or creating about. But it takes that consistency and it takes that endurance. And really the point of this is you can learn so much over time. Some people say your first video is going to suck. Just embrace it. That's the point. Fail fast, says design thinking, so you can learn from it and make something better the next time. So you've got to get started and you've got to know, okay, let me make 100 of something so then I can look back and say, now what have I learned about the process? Whoo! Okay, is that intimidating? You can do it, I promise. And I want to watch all 100 of them. Okay, last, number 10 in these 10 tips, get to know the space, which means you got to watch some YouTube. Your homework is really to just stop watching this video and go watch a bunch of YouTube videos. What fun homework. Now, the point of this is really ethnographic research. It's a fancy way of saying get to know the context. Listen before you speak. Get to know the area before you just assume you understand it all. So watch the various types of content on the platform and take note of what you resonate with and what you like.
Okay, one more pause here. I initially, in this original recording, had a list of some of the YouTube videos I recommended, but it was very weird to just list them off. So go check the links below. I'll have a bunch of my favorite YouTube channels there. Maybe I'll make a video in the future where I really dive in on some of the YouTube channels I recommend and why. Would you like that? If you're still watching to the end, you are my favorite person, so thank you. We have like seconds left in the video, but I just wanted to clear that up, why it feels like it ends kind of abruptly, because we're about to end very abruptly. Okay, let's go end abruptly.
All right, that's my 10 tips. And I hope that you dive into them all and see where it might take you.